Welcome to Sense and Sustainability, your podcast channel for sustainable procurement. We hope you like what you hear. Please go to www.iso2400.org for more information, learning resources, tools, and much more.
Welcome to Sense and Sustainability. I'm Sean McCarthy, Director of Action Sustainability Community Interest Company. It's my pleasure to introduce part 2 of 3 of our compelling interview with Ali Horriyat, where Ali talks about his journey from the financial services sector and making an awful lot of money towards his vision for his organisation Campassiviste and his ambition to engage millions of people around the world to join together in the interest of a sustainable environment. So, as I understand it, your objective, because what you're talking about, that sort of influence on a mass scale with consumers, you're talking millions of people to influence.
Oh, yes. So, and how are we doing that? I'll tell you. When we first started out, I had these ideas and I wanted to put them together. And I called it, the Campassiviste octopus as a wholesome of these 12 group of programs that we have. And the reason I call it the octopus is because, the octopus, it has this big brain in that bulbous head of it. And then in the tentacles, it has little brains in each tentacle. So when the octopus says, I'm hungry, by that big brain, that message reaches all the tentacles. And the tentacles say, oh, we need to go get food. Okay, number 2 and number 3, number 4, you guys walk. Number 5 and 6, scour for food. Number 7 and 8, when we find it and signal to you guys pounce and get the food, for example. And then the big brain, let us know when you're, satisfied and satiated and we'll stop food and we'll do the next thing that you tell us. So it's an ecosystem of an organism. It's one octopus. You could see an octopus and say that's one octopus, but really it's a whole environment, right? And I want us to be that way. I want us to be so connected that our goals are driven through this one consciousness, this one higher consciousness. And that is what creates harmony. That's what creates peace. That's what eliminates our friction. Our friction points today are so high that, there's so many sparks, there's so much fires around the world, whether you're talking about wildfires in, Canada, California now, just the ones, happening right now, or you're talking about human inflicted fires like Gaza, for example, or Ukraine. These are all friction points. You go racing ever and you brake too much, you start seeing sparks from your brakes, right? And what is causing the sparks? It's the friction. But if you went around the track at 20 miles an hour forever, if you had a solar roof and you didn't need any fuel forever, would you ever have friction? The only friction would be the tires, the rubber, right? That would be it. But it would be so minimal, there would be no sparks from it until you ran out of rubber. So I think the goal through this program, through Campassiviste Octopus, is to minimize friction. That is the ultimate goal, right? So that we can kind of move all together as one. And I think we can reach that because at the bottom line, the common denominator in humanity is the values of joy and safety. You give a person joy and security, what more can they ask for without greed kicking in? It's when greed kicks in that everything gets distorted. But leave greed out of the picture. I'm happy. I have, sufficient food and whatnot. All those fall under joy, right? All of those things, because if you're hungry, you're not happy. So all the things that lead to joy fall under joy. And of course, security is, the prolongation of life. You do that and there's no problems. Now, I thought, how do we do this to bring millions of people in? And a lot of people came to me and said, oh, marketing. That's how people are doing it these days. You got to become an influencer, social media. And I said, okay, teach me about it. Because guess what, Sean? I never had social media in my life. All this wealth, all this money, didn't like it. I didn't see the value in why people should see my garage or the inside of my house or my wardrobe or my shoe closet or where I'm having dinner or any of it. Why should you see that, right? That's mine. That's how I was brought up, but I was wrong. People today, you know how it is. They show everything. So I said, okay, teach me, what is this? And then I started hearing these equations, these acquisition rates and how much you spend and how many people you get and at what time. And I said, wait, we're trying to do this genuine holistic movement. And you're telling me to cheat with algorithms and equations and money to buy my way into persuasion and influence. No, I can't do that because it's wrong. Okay, Ali, how are we going to do it? We sat down and we thought, and it wasn't my idea, actually. It was one of the team members' ideas, and Tom Cohen, and accomplished person in coming from a background of film. That's what he did before, and he still does. And he said, we need a convention. We need to go back to the days where people actually came together, not by just likes on social media or comments after a video or picture or something, but we need to actually come together where people can connect, where people can start building this tribal effect. And I said, that's genius, Tom. That is genius. Okay, we started building on the idea. One thing led to another, and I came up with the idea of, hey, let's throw a film fest in there. Let's throw a concert in there, because you and I are both old enough to not be offended when people say, do you remember Live Aid? Live Aid made a difference.
Yeah, it did.
Right? It did, didn't it? It made a difference. Or when Princess Diana shook the hand of the AIDS patient. I mean, that was education. That was years of education in one move. Because before that, I remember I was young. And, my mom used to come to Europe, get me from school, and we'd travel. And she, don't sit here, don't go there, don't touch this, and clean things with salt before you could use the cutlery. Why? Because you'll get AIDS. And I'm thinking, what is this AIDS that you get in every possible way? And it wasn't true, right? This isn't how you could get AIDS, but we just didn't have the education. So here comes Princess Diana, touches an AIDS patient, and the whole world from the next day says, hold on, I need education. I need to know what's going on here, because does she have AIDS? Like, what's going on? So those little things, Live Aid, I remember being young. I remember the story of how Freddie Mercury and Queen had to really beg and force themselves into the stage, right? They had to fight to get onto the stage. It wasn't like today where it'll be like, how much are you paying me to show up? Right? Because there was a cause. There was some benefit, heal the world, all those different ones, right? There was something to do. We are the children. I mean, there's some benefit to it. Where are those today? You have multi-billion-dollar artists who have concerts. You don't see a banner of anything on the stage. You don't see one thing that, even on the tickets that, thanks for purchasing the ticket and come and see my concert. 10% of the proceeds of your ticket are going towards this cause. So at least I get engaged. I'm like, oh, she or he must be really excited about this cause. What is it about? Let me go find out. Let me go on the website. Let me engage. Nobody's doing that. It's not happening in journalism either. It's not happening anywhere. So I thought, let's bring that back. Let's do a concert where, through our own music program, we bring our artists and we ask celebrity artists who want to be a part of this that doesn't really exist that much anymore. Today, we have Burning Man and those other things that are, again, for that elite, it's catered to a specific type of people. And the Film Fest, same thing. You go to the big movie studios and they're willing to finance Fast and the Furious into the 30s of that sequel, or James Bond number 20 something, and get sponsorship from car companies and all these other places, make a lot of money. But you tell them, hey, I have a really powerful story that I can share that will really touch people and help them. It's about mental health. It's about autism. Now, go find money, make it independently. Go find some government money or some other thing that, you probably can make it for cheap and it'll be a documentary. Maybe you can sell it to Netflix if you're lucky. That's where it's at, right? That's really where the impact films are at. And once in a blue moon, one breaks out and becomes Parasite. That movie wins the Oscars. But then on the back of that, we didn't bring a whole category of social impact films and place it into the Oscars and say this was important. We didn't do that. We just threw it into different categories, right? It either goes into drama or comedy or whatever it may be. So I thought, let's make a film festival of social impact. Let's make a music festival with a banner that says, this is what our music is doing. Let's have a speakers area where people can come and engage with speakers who are doing something in the world. Show what you're doing. Let people in front of you be a part of what you're doing. And of course, the convention, just like any other, with vendors and everything else involved to a certain cause. Now, I decided not to do the social media route. I decided, no, we're not going to spend millions of dollars that we don't even have to beg for millions of dollars and explain to people we're spending this millions of dollars so that we have some kind of clout, so people listen to what we're saying. Never mind if they're engaging or not, because it's not about that. It's about just how many followers do we have. And so we decided, no, we got to do something proactive. And I think through the convention, people get involved. They start following these artists. They start being involved in what they're doing, the causes. They start watching these films. And I'll throw one name out. There was a film Woody Harrelson was involved in, Kiss the Ground, it's called. At the end of that film, it's about sustainable agriculture. And at the end of the film, there's a web link. You click on, you go to this website, and this is how you can be involved in sustainable agriculture. There's something to go off of. A lot of social impact films today don't have a follow through. So it could be a film about rape. Could be a film about mental health. It could be a film about gender, identity, all those issues that are really important today. And you watch the film and it just leaves you to go home and discuss it with whoever you watch the film with or your friends the next day or something. It really doesn't allow you to get involved somewhere. Whereas I think if there was a group that came and said, hey, let's connect this film, sustainability, climate change, Leonardo DiCaprio, Don't Look Up, that film. There's nothing attached to it. A lot of media done, and then the star of the film is jet setting on his private plane around the world. That is how we're making social impact movies today. We need to change that model. So it's not about consumer, supply chain, none of that. It's about a holistic revision of our model and a real change, a real comeback, and saying, look, guys, we messed up. It's okay. It's okay that we messed up because we learned from our mistakes. It's not a failure. We learn from our mistakes. The failure is 50 years from now when we're wearing gas masks walking around because there's no oxygen, and we say, how did we get here? That is a failure because now you can't fix it. But right now, it's not a failure. Right now, we need spaces like Campassiviste to grow through conventions, through actual real tangible models. And we're traveling this convention like a circus. We're going every year, like the Olympics, not every 4 years, but every year, into different major centers. And I really want to emphasize this one thing. It is the Northern Hemisphere we need to focus on. Unfortunately, a lot of people are down south trying to make, climate change betterments in Uganda. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, we're down there too. It's not that we're not down there. We're down there in Tanzania. We're helping the Maasai, but we're helping them survive. They're getting drought and floods and all those things. People who understand the region, but they don't understand climate change. They've never been through this change. They don't know how to herd their cattle in this kind of situation. They know how to herd their cattle in proper situations. But now, how am I going to tell the Maasai to live more sustainably when they don't even have running electricity, right? But we go down there and we try to implement these SDGs down there. No, implement them in London, in New York. Those are the places you need to fix so that China, those are the places you need to fix so that we can have a better Southern Hemisphere and not to enslave them. When you tell Brazil, hey, we need that rainforest logging, like we need that wood because carpentry up here, I'm making furniture. I'm making books. I'm making millions of dollars. I don't care. I need your rainforest. Brazil is just a slave economy at the end of the day. It doesn't have the capacity to say no. It's not the United States. It doesn't control the market in that sense. So when the controllers of the markets are acting, in this ridiculous criminal manner, in essence, right? Criminal manner. What are you expecting of the ones who just have to respond to these pharaohs as slaves? They have to say, yes, sir. And so I think the purpose of the convention and the whole movement is to mobilize the North the population of the north, the people you are affecting in your organization. You're affecting people on a personal level to make changes. You're affecting corporations on even a corporate personal level to make changes. But those aren't going to happen if everybody doesn't come together. And I think that's where the focus needs to be. EU, UK, Canada, US. Because at the end of the day, even China and India, as much as their pollution's horrible and they have really bad laws when it comes to sustainability stuff, they're just responding. Again, they're slave markets. So you tell India, I will not buy t-shirts from you anymore unless you go by this code. You set up codes like the ISO 2400, right? You set up these codes and you implement it not through the government, because Modi's government, for example, is not going to be able to enforce this in a country where there's no enforceability at all. It'll take generations. By then, we don't even need it. But the person paying those companies can enforce it. If I'm making t-shirts, I have more say in India than the government in terms of implementing change. So we need to want that change. Where does that change start from? H&M is never going to make those changes if I still go into the store and buy. So, it starts from the consumer, who is also the producer or the corporation, because I, as a person, am the consumer today. But in the morning, I was working at H&M. I mean, if that's my job, I'm working there. So I'm both. Remember, corporations are not aliens. They're not another civilization that are sharing this planet. No, it's us. It's humans. So I don't believe in that model of consumers and producers. No, we're all one. We need to come back to becoming one, live in one community, have that one consciousness, tell us the goal of today is to be sustainable.
Do you see some good examples?
I see pioneering examples. And I see where the lack is. So pioneering examples, Greta Thunberg, God bless her. I mean, as a kid, to consistently sit out Fridays and do this. I mean, we see her now, but we forget the years that she stood there by herself and she said, I don't care, I'm going to do this, right? That is a pioneering example of a rebel. That's the kind of person who's going to make changes. But then why do I call it pioneering? Is because right now she gets arrested every other weekend. I mean, you open your BBC app and there's Greta getting arrested again at some event, right? How much is she affecting change though? Right? And it's not her fault. It's our fault. Because we're not building the collective who can allow her to lead in that collective, right? So imagine you had a Martin Luther King, and imagine nobody gave him a microphone, and imagine nobody empowered him, and imagine nobody went with him on the Million People March. You would not have a Martin Luther King. So there are a lot of people, there are a lot of voices, but they just don't have the platforms because they don't have the numbers. And in the way that people are getting assassinated, today socially, it's really difficult and dangerous to go up and say the things you want to say. I mean, you go up and say, these are the problems, these are the changes we need to do, and you're just one voice, you'll get shut down pretty quickly and you'll be made an example of very quickly. But you come in with, a whole lot of people, then it becomes different. If Gandhi would have stayed in London and written to, the government at the time and said, hey, this isn't good that you're doing this to my country. We would like our independence, please. I think they would have just, taken away his law license and everything else and connected him to some crime and put him in jail. It was as simple as that. But by going back home and explaining to people why they need to come together pre-social media days, walking farm to farm, explaining to people and explaining to farmers, I mean, not highly educated people, simple people, explaining to them why this needs to happen for the betterment of India, and then being able to do it because the British look at them and say, there's no way we're engaging in this. This is way too much drama right now. We'll just give it to them. That is how it's done. It's as simple as that. But you need to bring the people together. And I think today, two things are happening. One is we quickly fall into our egos. A lot of people start out with brilliant ideas. They get to the point where they lose their vision, and you see that in billionaires sometimes. They have this great idea. They're not billionaires. They have this great idea, change the world kind of technology idea. And then they get to a level where they really can have that command, and they lose sight of the goodness that they can do with their command and the power that they hold over people in terms of influence, celebrities. I mean, imagine Taylor Swift right now. Imagine Taylor Swift said, whoever's my fan will, do A, B, and C, very sustainable things, everyday things. I think we would see a drop in the problem, just like in the lockdown days of the pandemic, where the skies were blue everywhere in the world. We would see that right away. So these are influence. I think the issue is we don't see the collectives and the platforms that allow these models to rise. And remember, historically, these platforms were always the way that they rose. Christianity didn't happen with Jesus. It happened with the church that modeled itself on Jesus's message, because the Catholic Church has nothing to do with Jesus, right? I mean, I don't see a synergy there. You're the richest real estate and holding company in the world, and your own country. I don't understand how Jesus plays into that, but they modeled the whole thing around Jesus's message. So had they not done that, there would have really not been no Christianity. I mean, it had fizzled at that early point in history, right? It was the revival through the political power that brought back Christianity, and then it branched out, and all the history happened. So in essence, same thing with Islam. After the Prophet of Islam dies, there isn't much going on. There's no empire. There's just a bunch of people living around Mecca and Medina and a little few towns around there. And then all of a sudden, the Ottoman Empire happened. And all of a sudden, the invasion of the Persian Empire happened. And now you have this empire. So it's always about the collective. It's always about how many people you have in one place kind of wanting one thing. And I think today, whether you're in London, whether you're in LA, whether you're in Rio, in Dubai, and anywhere in the world, in India, anywhere, everybody, when I say everybody, I mean a majority of people, I can comfortably say the majority of people want to fix the unsustainable way we're heading towards extinction. They want to. We just aren't providing it. And the reason we aren't providing it is because the people in control are short-sighted. Profit is a short-sighted game.
Ali, thank you very much for setting out to us your bold vision for Campassiviste and how you plan to engage people's hearts and minds around sustainability. This is part 2 of 3 of our interviews with Ali. Do please listen out for part 3, where Ali sets out his vision for the future of Campassiviste. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to our podcast on sense and sustainability. Please listen out for more episodes. For more information, learning resources, tools, and much more content on sustainable procurement, go to www.iso2400.org.